Hi everyone, it's author Kelly Cameron here, and this time it's with a more personal video. I had, kind of thought about doing this for a while, but in the last few weeks since I made a birthday post on some of my social media accounts, I had a lot of private messages sent to me. Asking me about my journey with my physical pain. For those that don't know, I did have surgery in the spring. People were just asking me because they've had questions about what I went through because they felt that they had similar symptoms, and so they just wanted to hear about my journey and my I don't give medical advice or anything. However, I do just share my personal experiences in the medical system here in Canada and how I advocate for people to stand up for themselves and to ask more questions of their physicians, and if they're not getting the answers or they're not feeling like they're listened to try to find people that will listen. So I thought I would do a video to outline my journey because it's amazing how different I feel from a year ago. It's quite incredible. It's still, recovery is going well, and I know that to get in shape or whatever you want to say, I've part of what I'll talk about is how I've started to look at being healthy differently because of all of this. And but first, I guess I'll get into what I went through. Over a year and a half ago, that I was starting to get pain in my solar plexus, and I was having trouble breathing. I did a lot of teaching courses to coaches, and I found that I was having difficulty just standing up and talking, and that I was winded and that it hurt, and it was also hurting a lot when I was eating, and I just felt really full and bloated a lot. And even prior to that, because that's basically was a symptom of years of unchecked and undiagnosed abdominal pain. And with my fourth child, who's now 14 and a half, I had a cesarean section. The rest of the kids I had naturally, and he was an emergency C-section. And I don't feel I ever fully recovered. And actually, one of the surgical assistants that I saw prior to my surgery, they did mention that they figured they were repairing some damage that I either hadn't healed correctly from my C-section, and that's why I'd had so much pain all the time. And so basically, by the time, he's now 14 and a half. So this was when I started to really look at my pain and talk to people about it, because for years I hadn't really spoken to anybody about what I was going through. I was in the hospital once about a year after he was born, maybe not quite that long, but since his birth and after, like, the 6 weeks that they say to recover, I was basically told you can do everything again and get back into exercising. And I'm the kind of person who liked intense physical exercise. I was running at that time. I liked to do power training circuits. And I feel that I did not get back into things slow enough, probably. And I'd already had some pain from my other pregnancies that I hadn't really looked at. I was always told that it was normal because my babies were big and I'm a very tiny person. So I kept hearing all these messages that I kept adopting for such a long time, and I believed them. And so one of the things that I kept being told, I should rather, is that, you just need to lose weight and exercise, eat right, you're going to be fine. And I was hospitalized at one point for severe abdominal pain, and nobody could figure it out. And I'd even gone to see specialists. I'd had a colonoscopy. No one could find anything. It was very frustrating. So hearing this narrative and then people saying, well, we don't know what your pain is, just feeling like I had to figure it out by myself. And I was a younger mother then. That was, 15 years ago. I had 4 children and I was very busy. And then I went through a divorce. So for a long time, it was just really managing pain. And over the years, I just dropped doing exercise that would cause me pain. Running would cause me pain. I didn't do it. I walked. So I got less and less active over the years, even though I had started training in a martial art. I'd taken up Qigong 7, 8 years ago now. So I was still doing things, and I've talked before about Qigong and Bagua really helped me, but that's another video that I'll do later. Really became less and less active at the things that I really like to do. And it got to a point last year where I'd had a CT scan done, and because I couldn't even walk across my yard without getting winded, and not even like a brisk pace or anything like that. So it was very intense, and I ended up going to urgent care, and where they did all kinds of tests, things that they thought my doctor should have done, but she hadn't ordered any of those. And of course, as a patient, I don't know. I'm waiting for tests to be done. I'm told that, this ultrasound is going to take place in a couple of months, and this scope is going to be done at this time. So there was a lot of waiting around, and I just got to the point where I was like, I can't even move anymore. And that was really felt like a physical rock bottom to me, where I thought, wow, I've really unfortunately let this go for such a long time that I'm having all of these problems. What I ended up being diagnosed with was a few things actually, and I found this out over a period of months. Is that I had two hernias. One was an umbilical hernia, which is very common in women who've been pregnant and have had children. It's also it just common in people. If you've gained weight and lost weight, you can get it that way too, and it's not only for women. Men and women have it. And I also had a left inguinal hernia as well, which over time had just gotten worse. The other pain that I found out that I had that was in my solar plexus was I had a hiatal hernia too. So those were three things that I found out that I had. And then I had another diagnosis of something called adenomyosis, and I didn't even had heard of it at that point. I'd heard of endometriosis. That's a little more common. When I did speak a few months ago with a specialist about that, he explained to me that adenomyosis can be very painful, and there's hormone therapy that people take for it. Sometimes it's pain injections that you get in your pelvic floor. But basically, what he explained to me, which made sense. I finally, could understand some of the feelings that I had in my abdomen for a long time, was that it's like a bruise. It's like your uterus is bruised. So every month when you're going to have your period, you can feel very full. Sometimes it's very painful because the blood will bleed. It'll bleed into the muscle instead of just all coming out. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing and that could happen. So in the last year, I've taken a lot of steps to get well. I've changed my diet a lot to fix the bacteria. I don't know if I feel better. So I'm, crossing my fingers that that was working. So it was really looking at my diet, what I was eating smaller portions and maybe a little bit more often during the day rather than bigger meals. That really has helped a lot with that and any acid reflux that I had. I don't have to take any medication anymore. I got a referral to a surgeon, and when I saw the surgeon, she was like, "Oh, yeah, you've got textbook hernias, and we're going to fix them." And she told me about the procedure, and I thought, okay, I want to do it. And thought that it would be a little bit longer, but this spring they had an opening, and I was able to get in sooner. So those things have worked for me, and my recovery from those have worked well. And the other thing that I started going for was pelvic floor therapy, and that really helped a lot, because even though I kept getting told, like, even last year when I got the diagnosis and people knew that I was in pain, I kept hearing, well, your hernias are too small, they can't be causing you pain. And I said, well, then what is it? And everybody would be, I don't know, and they throw up their hands, I don't know. So it was very frustrating. And here in Winnipeg, we have a women's health clinic. So I ended up calling them, and they got me in to see some specialists. It was free to go. Unfortunately, they don't have any general practitioners that are free, but you can go. They actually had a pelvic pain clinic, and I went there and got to talk to someone who took their time in speaking with me. So I've had some not great experiences with people not listening, and then I've had some good experiences, but I had to keep pushing. I had to keep advocating for myself. And there were some times where I just felt like, is this ever am I ever going to feel better? Am I ever going to get, the help I need, the answers that I want. And the answer is yes, I did. I had kept having to work at it though, and I kept having to just keep advocating and getting support from my family, my children, my partner, because you are going to feel, and I did feel very much like just down sometimes, where I just thought, oh my gosh. And even this summer, I just trying to take it easy and rest a lot, because even though physically I feel better from the surgery, I'm still a little tired, and I'm still taking it slowly, doing my physiotherapy, my pelvic floor therapy, and all the exercises that I need to do to build my body up right, and not just jump into everything and the way that I would like, but also to work up to those things. And I found that forcing myself to slow down, the most important thing that I did for myself was I started talking about it, because I was in so much pain for so many years. I didn't talk to my kids about it. I didn't tell anyone. I just tried to power through. And when the last year and a half that I've gone through this with my kids would say to me, "Wow, mom, like, I remember now you laid down a lot when we were kids." I'm like, "Yeah, I did, because I was in so much pain that I just I had to, rest in between taking them to all their things and stuff." And so it was good that we got to talk about all of that. That was really nice. Emotionally, it took a lot. I processed through a lot about why I had been giving so much power to all of this pain, and how I had really become less active, not the person that I wanted to be because of it. Also discovered too that my transverse abdominis after my C-section had not been working properly, and I don't know when that stopped working, or if it's just over time, because your muscles were so tight. Having the combination of hernias and tight muscles, and your muscles need to relax. And one thing that I learned from my pelvic floor therapist is that really tense muscles are very weak muscles. So, working with her, I had to learn how to re engage the muscles. And it was a conscious effort all the time to learn how to re engage that part of my body when I'm standing, doing the dishes, reaching up into the cupboard. And it's become a little easier now. I don't have to think about it so much, or when I'm bending over, getting down, like to always be doing that, because it had stopped doing that. And that's why when I had been teaching gymnastics, I started to get pains in my solar plexus, I started to get pains in my shoulders, because when you have a group of muscles, especially the pelvic floor, your pelvis area, that transverse abdominis, when those are not working properly, you're not supporting your body and not supporting your skeletal structure very well, and the rest of your muscles. So it's really important that you find, if you're having pain, to figure out what it is and what's happening. And I encourage women to, because a lot of women, and this is what I found, some men are, so I don't want to exclude anyone, but women are very often misdiagnosed for for abdominal pain. And I've talked to quite a few women who've had undiagnosed abdominal pain. They're still trying to find answers, and they're still working on things. It's not like people aren't doing anything, but we're trying to figure out what it is. And abdominal pain can be very interesting, because even though we all have pain that can be sort of debilitating or very painful, it's also that we have different diagnoses. I had a friend who was in severe pain, was told the same messages from her doctor that I was, about losing weight and you're going to be fine, don't worry about it. And, she had this pain, and hers was different than mine. So I don't know that my pain, what I had, would be anyone else's diagnosis, because I had a few things that were wrong that needed to be addressed. So sometimes it's not just one issue, it's more than one issue that can cause a multitude of problems. And that's also why it's hard to diagnose. But if you're not getting a diagnosis and you feel like people aren't listening, you got to find those people who are going to listen, who are going to hear you. And there's a lot of things that I had to learn, like different tricks, even to go to the bathroom, for example, because sometimes because my abdominal muscles weren't working properly, I would find it hard to go to the bathroom. I would feel constipated even though I wasn't. And there's ways that you can manipulate your muscles to engage and to work properly. I actually learned how to do a Kegel for real. That it's not just what I was told years ago about, squeezing, the muscles of your vagina. There's like a whole uh, bunch of muscles that you have to engage and then release when you're doing it. And I actually learned how to do it properly, and that's really helped doing it with different breathing techniques, also helping to go to the bathroom. So I know that there's a lot of things that can help women, and there's things that I had to learn to even help myself, like to go to the bathroom properly, because that was another thing that over time, if these things are untreated, it can cause problems with digestion because everything's just not working the way that it should. So I'm just encouraging people. I thought I would try to tell my story, and I hope that if anyone else is having a problem, like, send me a message if you just want to talk, or if you have a similar experience. I would love to hear about it. I love to support people. When I realized how much that I was holding myself back by not talking about it because I was embarrassed. There were things I was embarrassed about. I was embarrassed about how I had trouble going to the bathroom. I didn't want anyone to know. And then when I found out there's things I could do about it, I mean, there's just things sometimes where we get conditioned to feel like we can't talk to people, or we don't know how to talk to people about it. Or if we just kept getting told that there's nothing wrong, we don't want to talk about it. So I hope that this helps people. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And also, if you just need to talk, you can private message me on all of my social media channels. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.